Hello and welcome to the David Icke videocast. Well, a long time ago now, back in 1994, I wrote this book, And the Truth Shall Set You Free. This is a first edition. And in there, I talk about a plan being manipulated from the hidden that was going to play out as a centralized, total surveillance global dictatorship that would be based on people being connected through microchips to technology and a global computer system. Now, there were many, when that came out, who thought it was all a joke and ridiculous and far-fetched, and that mad guy's saying something even madder now. I wonder if they look around the world today, if any but the most in denial of people could think it was crazy now. The reason that I could predict that was not sitting in a darkened room pulling it out of the ether. It was because there is a plan for the world to completely usurp just humanity, usurp the human mind, and connect it to artificial intelligence, which would become the human mind. And if you spend 30 years, as I have, uncovering this every day, day after day after day after day, you can start to unravel and expose and understand the nature of both this hidden hand and what it plans for the human race. And the foundation of this control system is actually the internet. The internet that people have come to accept as a central part of their lives, central part of business, an everyday experience. But if we look at the internet from another angle, this hidden hand angle, then we can see it from a very different perspective. First of all, the technology that became the internet was created and funded by an organization called DARPA. DARPA is the technological development arm of the Pentagon. And if DARPA is creating it, because along with so many other things, it creates things like death rays and mind-controlled, AI-controlled soldiers, and endless more sophisticated ways of killing people. This is the organization that was behind the internet. But of course, if you're going to sell something to the global population that is ultimately, in its foundation form, a vehicle for total control of human life and the human mind, then you can't sell it for and on the basis of its ultimate reason for being. You have to sell it as a good thing people will benefit from. And so when the internet began, it was, in many ways, a good thing, because it allowed the free flow of information. And people say, this is great. You can communicate all over the world and give your opinion and your views and your information. But that was the fishing rod going out. The idea all along was to pull people in on the basis of the good things about the internet and make the internet, as it's become, central to human life, central to where people get their information from. And at the same time, you seed fund companies and you give them cover stories. Usually it seems involving some geek in a garage, of how they came about and who's ultimately controlling them. And you build those companies up to the point where they become virtual monopolies. And once you do that, then the real deal starts to appear. Because now you've got this near monopoly on the communication of information, on search engine technology. Then you start to take away the good things about the internet from the people's point of view, the ones that got the internet to become what it is, leaving only the good things from your point of view, which is everything you could even imagine that a military intelligence complex network would want. So now we're having the Facebooks, the Googles, Amazon now starting to say we're not having this book because it's outside of our guidelines or our values. I mean, when these people talk about values, I mean, it's just staggering. Have they no shame? So now the internet and the internet giants are giving the military intelligence complex everything it wants. Imagine. First of all, what do you want? Number one, you want constant 24/7 surveillance of the population and access to the fine detail of their lives, their attitudes, their opinions. And now we have a situation whereby the public are giving the military industrial network that very information. They don't have to even come looking for it. Just give it to them. Oh, I'm having so-and-so for me dinner. Here's a picture. 2, you want to control the information that people receive and to censor and delete information that you don't want them to receive. And that does what? It forms the perceptions of the population. Perceptions come from information received, control information received, dictate perception. And thirdly, this network wants to hijack the human mind by connecting us to artificial intelligence, so artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. And many people may not realize this, but these internet giants that appear to be search engines and social media platforms are actually at the cutting edge of this AI takeover, because that's what it is. So, here you have an internet which was created by the military and is dictated to a vast extent by companies that take and record fine detailed personal information about the population, increasingly dictate what people see and hear, and are at the forefront of pushing the AI takeover agenda. Put simply, if Google owned YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon did not exist, then the military intelligence complex would have to invent them. I say they did. And you can have this explained away, this, for instance, gathering of fine detail data about people's lives, as, oh, they're just doing it so they can sell it to advertisers. It's for money. At one level, yeah, they're doing that. But that data is not ultimately being taken because of advertising. That's an offshoot. That's a big bonus. It's ultimately being taken for the military, industrial, and intelligence network. But while this is going on, and while these internet giants have the ability now to massively influence the outcome of elections and the perceptions of the people on endless subjects in general, we have had this week Donald Trump and his administration and this psychopathic man called John Bolton, his national security advisor, announcing measures against foreign interference in US elections. Trump signs measure punishing election interference. President Donald Trump signed an executive order meant to punish foreign entities for interfering in US elections, an attempt to demonstrate muscle on an issue he's been accused of downplaying. The order will allow new sanctions against Russian or other foreign actors. The targets could include foreign individuals, companies, or governments accused of attempting to breach election systems or spreading disinformation in a bid to alter the vote. That means that this order is worded so widely that you could interpret almost anything as foreign influence in an election. So if I put things on the internet during US elections, pointing out this or that about a candidate, and people say, oh, I didn't know that about them, crikey, I ain't voting for them, that's foreign interference, when it is purely information that voters have every right to have. And it's written this widely because then they can target anyone they like that suits their agenda. And John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, said that the president has repeatedly shown that he's determined there not to be foreign interference in US elections. This is the John Bolton and his cronies, who, as a matter of course, interfere in every foreign election that they can. The reason I raise that is that while that executive order is being implemented, within the borders of the United States, indeed within the borders of Silicon Valley, you have these Googles, YouTubes, Facebook, Twitters, etc., fundamentally influencing what people think by censoring information they don't want them to see, and thus influencing elections. Where is the legislation targeting that? We had a situation this week where a 4-page memo came to light from a senior Google employee that revealed that they made, quote, silent donations, they don't say what that was, to help Latinos get to the polls. And the reason for it was that they thought that Latinos were far more likely to vote for Hillary Clinton in the last presidential election than for Donald Trump. And just think of the power alone, potentially, that Google has to influence perception and thus elections by who goes where in the search engine lists when people put in their keywords. It's fundamental in its potential to impact on not just American, but global society. And of course, it's happening. This is where the censorship comes in. Oh, you can't say that because we don't want people to believe that. We want people to believe that. That's why that's not censored. And on the same subject, revolving door, dozens of Clinton staffers hired by Google and vice versa. Dozens of people who used to work for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and a number of Clinton initiatives went on to work at Google and vice versa. At least 12 employees from the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, and the Clinton Health Access Initiative went on to work for Google, while at least 15 Google employees went on to work for Hillary for America. Now, that's not in support of Trump and against Hillary Clinton. I don't support either of them. My goodness me, the very thought. The point is that these internet giants, with their ability to influence perception through control of information, should not be in bed or anywhere else with those from one political persuasion, whether it's Clinton, Trump, or anybody. But they are, because there's a scam going on. And the internet is allowing this global control. Without it, couldn't happen on the scale. Not only that it is happening, but on the scale that it is planned to happen, because we've seen nothing yet. This week, we had this story about the EU. There was another censorship story and suppression of internet information circulation story that happened this week in relation to the EU. But here's another angle on it. EU enters final stage of crafting bill forcing big tech censorship. The European Union is in the final stages of crafting legislation that will force big tech and internet companies to censor extremist content and cooperate with law enforcement, Reuters reports. Now, one of the things that suggests we need to understand in all this is that the world is manipulated by symbolic, although it's not really symbolic, it's virtually literal, a spider's web. And each strand may look very different, it may have a different name, but actually it answers to the spider at the center of the web. So that's how the coordination becomes possible, while in the public arena everything seems unconnected and apart from everything else. So when you have the EU saying to internet companies, you will do this, you will censor this, you will censor that, and they say, oh, well, we really don't want to, but it's the law, so we've got to. This is just a game going on. A game where instead of just coming out and saying we're censoring this, we're censoring that, and they do enough of that, they could say, oh, well, we didn't really want to do this censorship, but I mean, the EU's changed the law. When actually, they all answer to the same bloody web, and it's all a game for public consumption, because in the end, this whole global control of humanity is a psychological operation. It's about control of human perception. Another story, these are all from this week. I mean, it's gathering so quickly. Creepy Google now tracking your credit card statements and retail purchases. What people don't realize, since MasterCard's 2 billion customers have not been informed, is that Google and MasterCard entered into a deal last year to allow Google advertisers to access a tool that tracks whether online searches translate into sales at American stores. With regard to this latest breach of trust by Google and MasterCard, it was reported that there are real concerns about the amount of information that these corporations have access to and their level of responsibility for what they choose to do with that information. Well, I've mentioned already where I'm saying it ultimately ends up, and that's with the military, intelligence, industrial complex. We'll leave Google for a second. Yahoo! Email caught secretly scanning user emails to build Icke profiles to sell to advertisers. If you use Yahoo Mail or AOL Mail, even your email, it says, is no longer off limits. The owner of Yahoo Mail and AOL Mail, Verizon, nice people, is offering a new service to advertisers that involves constantly scanning the 200 million inboxes of those who use Yahoo Mail. Verizon reportedly told advertisers they search people's emails to find clues about the goods and services they might be interested in buying. See, advertising. It's all about advertising, these people. But what else can be searched for at the same time? According to communications between Verizon and advertisers, they place their users in different categories according to the mail they receive. For example, getting car loan notifications makes people part of the car owner group. Brokerage trade confirmations earn someone the investor label, and flight confirmation emails mean a user will be considered a frequent traveler. Taking it one step further than Google did in the past, they then create interest profiles of each user, follow them across the internet, and deliver appropriate ads when they visit other sites. Pinterest claims that if you question vaccines, you are spreading self-harm and must be banned. Censorship is expanding at an incredibly disturbing pace, with conservative pundits, I'll come to that shortly, being wiped off social media spaces across the internet. Pinterest has joined the likes of Facebook, Google, and Twitter by waging war against independent thought, by declaring that anyone who espouses criticisms of the vaccine industry, see also Zionism, same principle, is actually promoting self-harm. Vaccines, it says, have injured thousands of children, and then some. And the parents of these children often turn to social media to share their stories as a way of cautioning other parents and to spread awareness. Now, Pinterest and other social media networks are trying to silence them. Wouldn't be on behalf of Big Pharma, would it? Nah, fake news. By taking away their freedom of speech and ousting concerned parents from their platforms, Big Pharma's puppets can continue to push their narrative for total vaccine tyranny unchallenged. Erasing posts sharing the realities of vaccine injuries serves the ludicrous notion that vaccines are 100% safe. The echo chamber is real and it's getting bigger. Free speech on the internet is disappearing. Pinterest community guidelines. My God, how often do we see that now? Our community guidelines. No, what you've decided to censor, mate. Nothing to do with guidelines. Pinterest community guidelines section includes a host of topics that are banned or hidden from public view. As the site states, our team works hard to keep divisive, disturbing or unsafe content off Pinterest. And who, pray, decides what is divisive, disturbing or unsafe? They do. On what basis? They're not saying. Another headline, New York City's Wi-Fi hotspots confirmed as surveillance and tracking devices. Once again, the internet is fundamental to this whole extraordinarily beyond Orwellian control system that's now unfolding before our eyes. And, you know, I mentioned there, you hear this all the time, that conservative voices are being censored as opposed to liberal voices. But it's not like that at all. I really do wish people would stop, pushing that, because it's skewering reality. The reason what are called liberal voices, they're not really, are not censored is because they are the stormtroopers, the Twitter stormtroopers of what the agenda wants. Political correctness, deletion of other opinions that you don't agree with. So of course the fake liberals, called these days progressives, are not censored because they're saying what the agenda wants. And those that have other opinions, which call themselves conservatives, are censored because they're not saying what the fake liberals are saying. But there are still just real liberal people, genuine liberal people that don't act like Nazi censors, that believe in freedom of speech, that believe in freedom of opinion, even though they might not agree with it. Oh, call the police. And they are being censored. So the common denominator here is not conservative or liberal. The censors are targeting anyone who is challenging the official narrative. And until people start to realize that on the so-called fake liberal left, they are going to be continued to be played like one of them, to bring about a world which is exactly the opposite of what true liberal thinkers stand for. So we have had this story this week. Amid outrage, New Yorker drops plans to interview Bannon at festival. This is Steve Bannon, who did a great deal to get Trump elected, of course, before leaving the administration. And this is what you are seeing more and more and more. And this mentality that censors opinions that it doesn't want people to hear is not censored because it's doing the bidding of the very 1% it claims to oppose. It is sickening to watch these fake liberal progressives cheering when these corporations that genuine liberals have always challenged, cheering them when they censor other opinions. It's pathetic. And they have no idea where it's leading for them, because they're so consumed by their own self-purity. So, facing widespread outrage, Twitter storm, The New Yorker has dropped plans to interview Steve Bannon during its festival next month. New Yorker editor David Remnick told the Associated Press in a statement that he had changed his mind. No, the mob have changed your mind because your backbone started to wobble. The former Donald Trump aide and ex-chairman of Breitbart News was supposed to be a featured guest during a prestigious gathering that over the years has drawn some of the world's most prominent artists and public figures. This year's guests include Emily Blunt, Zadie Smith and Sally Yates, who Trump fired as Deputy Attorney General after she refused to back his initial ban on travelers from Muslim countries. The ban was advocated by Bannon, a senior White House advisor at the time. I've thought it through and talked to colleagues, and I've reconsidered, Remnick said, who has repeatedly denounced Trump and his administration. Well, where does all this end? Have they ever thought about that? Where all this leads? See, if you're confident of what you're saying and the validity of what you're saying, you want people who are opposing you to have their opinion expressed publicly so that the validity of what you're saying can be seen in relation to them, because you're confident that what you're saying has validity. But if you're not confident, then what you want is to delete any opposition or criticism of what you're saying so only your voice is ever heard. It's called tyranny, by the way. And like I say, where does this end? When only the official version of everything is ever heard. Do these progressives think that this censorship won't eventually apply to them, as the squeeze and the squeeze on what you can say and not say goes on? Used to be okay, even under political correctness, used to be okay to talk about feminism and women's rights. But now they're being censored in the interests of transgender people. That's the claim. It's just another excuse for censorship. And here's a wonderful example from this week. Think Progress censored by Facebook after cheerleading Facebook. Think Progress, it says, is part of a very large and diverse branch of progressive punditry. Fake liberal, in other words. Think Progress has documented Facebook's heroic efforts to shut down alleged Iranian propaganda outlets, ominously warning its readers that Russia is by no means the only foreign adversary exploiting social media's inherent openness, including progressives. I take it. Other articles have wagged the finger at Facebook and Twitter for not doing more to censor Russian propaganda and for not censoring Alex Jones. Jones was censored by Facebook the following month. So it's understandable that those of us who have been warning of the dangers of internet censorship find it a bit funny to see Think Progress now complaining that it has been censored by Facebook. This is what I'm talking about. As the squeeze goes on, those calling for censorship eventually get censored. Wake the hell up. Think Progress reports that its traffic from Facebook has been slashed by 80% due to a fact check by the Weekly Standard, which, through a series of moronic mental contortions, found Think Progress guilty of reporting fake news about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. In a twist of irony which would be delicious if it weren't so disgusting, the Weekly Standard is one of Facebook's authorized fact-checkers and happens to be the brainchild of none other than the bloodthirsty psychopath and rehabilitated at-resistance hero Bill Kristol. So Think Progress is now getting censored by Facebook. You really couldn't ask for a more clear-cut case of reaping what you sow. And this is where it's going. Just look at this. Here is a fake liberal organization calling for the censorship of people it doesn't agree with. And then it is censored as a result of the intervention of an organization, the Weekly Standard, that was the vehicle for this guy, William Kristol. Who's he? William Kristol, along with another guy, created the Project for the New American Century, which published documents in September 2000 demanding a series of wars in the Middle East, leading to regime change of leaders of those countries that it wanted taken out. And just by coincidence, you'll understand, that list of countries and regime changes has been ticked off ever since by president after president. Bush, Obama, Trump, doesn't matter. Same things go on, the same agenda, demanded by William Kristol of the Weekly Standard. They go on, presidency after presidency. And now we have a situation, this is how far we've gone, where the Weekly Standard is a fact checker, dictating, therefore, what people see and don't see as Think Progress have now experienced. Does anyone think it's worth re-evaluating fake liberal progressives, where your actions are taking the world and what the consequences will eventually be for you? They mentioned Alex Jones there. There are many things that I agree with that Alex Jones says. There are quite a few things that I don't. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks of Alex Jones, whether they like him or don't. The point is that if he is denied freedom of expression, as he has been by these internet giants in recent times, then everyone has lost freedom of expression. Because when you're denying people the right to say what they think and what they believe and what their opinions are, then all that's left for everyone else is the freedom to conform to what is acceptable to these authorities that are banning other people. And this range of what you're allowed to say just goes on being squeezed until there's nothing left but the official narrative. That's where we're going, and we're going there by the day. So the freedom of speech of people we don't agree with is actually our freedom of speech. For anyone with a brain cell on active duty, that is. So where is it leading? Well, we can get a great idea by looking at China. See, China has been a closed society, closed in terms of government, etc. And thus, it's been able to do what it bloody well likes. And where China is now, and is going very shortly, is where the so-called free world of the West is planned to go. It can't go quite so quickly, although it is catching up, because it's not quite such a controlled society as China. But that's where it's going. So we look at China and we see where the West is planned to go. Helped, by the way, by these same internet giants who are quite happy to censor on behalf of the Chinese government so they can get into the country. So, China. China installing QR codes on Muslim homes as part of mass security crackdown. China is installing QR codes on the homes of a Muslim community in order to get instant access to the personal details of people living there, according to a report by Human Rights Watch. The development comes as part of a mass security crackdown on minorities in one province, the charity said, which includes arbitrary detentions, daily restrictions on religious practice, and forced political indoctrination. What is banning other opinions and political opinions while emphasizing others? What is that except, what's the quote? Forced political indoctrination. Political correctness. You can't say that. You can't have that opinion. What is that? Forced political indoctrination. The story said officials reportedly scanned the smart door plates. Smart, this is the smart grid of AI control. Scan the smart door plates with mobile devices before entering homes to monitor inhabitants. Look forward to that. Starting from spring 2017, in every home where one enters, there's a QR code, said one former resident. Then every 2 days or every day, the cadres come and scan the QR code so they know how many people live there. And starting around then, they would ask our visitors, "Why are you here?" In the evenings, the cadres would check as well. Former residents said authorities are also collecting biometric data, such as DNA and voice samples, when people apply for passports or ID cards or during police interrogations. And this is the next stage. Big data meets Big Brother as China moves to rate its citizens. The Chinese government plans to launch its social credit system in 2020. The aim? To judge the trustworthiness or otherwise of its 1.3 billion residents. This is a report from 2017. On June 14, 2014, the State Council of China published an ominous-sounding document called Planning Outline for the Construction of a Social Credit System, straight out of 1984. In the way of Chinese policy documents, it was a lengthy and rather dry affair, but it contained a radical idea. What if there was a national trust score that rated the kind of citizen you were? Imagine a world where many of your daily activities were constantly monitored and evaluated. What you buy at the shops and online, where you are at any given time, who your friends are and how you interact with them, how many hours you spend watching content or playing video games, and what bills and taxes you pay or don't. It's not a hard picture because most of that already happens, the article says, thanks to those data collecting giants like Google, Facebook, and Instagram, owned by Facebook, by the way, as is WhatsApp, or health tracking apps such as Fitbit. But now imagine a system where all these behaviors are rated as either positive or negative and distilled into a single number according to a set of rules by the government. That would create your citizen score, and it would tell everyone whether or not you are trustworthy. Plus, your rating would be publicly ranked against that of the entire population and used to determine your eligibility for a mortgage or a job where your children can go to school, or even just your chances of getting a date. A futuristic vision of Big Brother out of control? The article asks. No. It's already underway in China, where the government is developing the social credit system, SCS, to rate the trustworthiness of its 1.3 billion citizens. The Chinese government is pitching the system as a desirable way to measure and enhance trust nationwide and to build a culture of sincerity. Straight out of 1984 again. As the policy states, it will forge a public opinion environment, control it, where keeping trust is glorious, agreeing with the official story of everything. It will strengthen sincerity in government affairs. What does that mean? Sincerity from government affairs? You must be joking. But sincerity in government affairs, we always trust the government. Commercial sincerity, social sincerity, and the construction of judicial credibility. The judges are never corrupt. For now, technically, participating in China's citizen scores is voluntary. But by 2020, 2 years from now, it will be mandatory. The behavior of every single citizen and legal person, which includes every company or other entity in China, will be rated and ranked whether they like it or not. And the best score comes if you agree that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. Appropriately from 1984. So this is where we are going. And I was able to preempt it all those years ago because there is a plan in the shadows that is playing this out. And if you can access that plan, then predicting the future becomes quite straightforward, for a simple reason that if nothing happens to intervene into what this hidden hand wants, it will happen. And my God, we're long past the time where intervention and non-cooperation is absolutely vital. And when you look at what makes it all possible, it's the internet. Created by the American military on behalf of the Hidden Hand. And what is happening now has been planned from day one.